What we do here is go back.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, hi. Welcome to GenreCon and to this panel. My name is Ian Tyson. I'm part of there's a trio of us. We call ourselves the Just Us League. And it is three of us. We do all of the hosting for the City Comic-Con in London, and it's our second year here at GenreCon, and so I'll be moderating this panel with Chris, and we're going to get Chris to tell a lot of his story, and but just, I mean, looking at your IMDb page, so many wonderful things, and a few things that I'm a big fan of. I may geek out on that, other people may geek out on other things, but we'll see. But has been in Degrassi, Red Windows, Star Trek Discovery, one of my favorite shows on television right now. Was in Supergirl, Handmaid's Tale, one of my other favorite shows on television right now. And of course, the Blue Power Ranger in Power Rangers S.P.D. But we also want to be talking, you were in the Transporter series, The Listener, Saving Hope, Return to Sleepaway Camp, which, P.S., the original was one of the most terrifying endings and haunted me when I was 13 years old. Yeah. We don't want to go into that. But I also, hopefully we can dive into a little bit about being a producer and director of your own shorts as well. Yep. Award-winning shorts, so we're going to get into that. But what I'd maybe ask just off the top is maybe just tell us a little about your journey to getting where you are, Chris.
Yeah, there's one that it was, I want to mention too, I did work with George Romero.
Oh, in Diary of the Dead. Yes.
I'm a huge zombie fan, so...
Can I tell, not that this is about me, this is about Chris, but quick story. I was always a big zombie fan, and Night of the Living Dead, Return, Dawn of the Dead, all the stuff. Yeah. I was flying down to San Diego Comic-Con in 2007. Okay. To go down there, and I'm on an Air Canada flight, Toronto to San Diego, in row 12, right behind first class. And I had never actually seen a picture of George A. Romero, but I had heard the descriptions of 6'8", long white hair, always wearing the photography vest, and glasses the size of windshields. Oh yeah. And I see this dude in first class, and I said to the flight attendant, I said, "Is that George A. Romero?" And she went, "Who the hell is George A. Romero?" And I went, "Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead." And she's like, "Hang on." And she goes, "Yeah, it says George Romero on the manifest." And I said, "Can I go get an autograph?" She said, "We can't do that. He's in first, but you could probably catch him at luggage." Yeah. Followed him down. I was right behind. Well, not followed. I was right behind him on the escalator. We're getting off the escalator, going to luggage, and I went, "Mr. Romero?" He said, "Hey." Yeah. We turned around, said hi, we chatted, we waited for luggage together. He signed my book, and a friend of mine did makeup on Land of the Dead. Yeah. And we were talking about that, and just was the sweetest guy. So yeah, we can definitely geek out on zombies too.
One of those guys too is like he said he was always a fan of Toronto and filming in Canada and filming in the GTA.
Well, didn't he lived here?
Yeah, he lived here. Yeah, he lived here actually. And exactly how you said, he was like, hey, he's quirky like that. Like I said, he was always like, whatever. If it works, it works. But yeah, I mean, we got a zombie lover here, obviously, Walking Dead.
For sure.
But yeah, he was the first one to kind of start the tone, and set the tone of zombies being zombies, slow, dead.
For sure.
And that was the fear of like, they're so slow, but are they gonna get me? And then there was the whole Dawn of the Dead, where they started to run around, and
Dawn of the Dead's terrifying.
28 days and 28 days later.
Yes.
That was more disease than zombie, but
it was basically the same kind of thing.
Yeah, same kind of concept.
Yeah, and he was just the sweetest. I said, "Can I get an autograph?" And he said, "Oh, you want to avoid the lines of the con?" And he actually didn't know where his ride was, and I was going to give him a ride for a little while. Yeah. But then his ride came. Yeah. Sweetest guy, and I loved his signature. Stay scared. Stay scared. George Romero was his autograph.
Funny too.
I love.
We did before we shot the film. He brought all the actors in, like, one-on-one to his condo, and like would discuss the character that we were going to play and what he wanted from us and whatnot. And as soon as we walk in, it's like any scary director, he's got one of those like hairless cats. And of course, you almost think it's like, is this like an evil layer of
like a caricature,
and he's like petting it, and he's like, I'm like, all right, it's exactly how I pictured it.
So is that one of that was early work for you?
Yes, so going back to like the Degrassis and all that stuff, when I first got into acting, I was 20 years old. I hadn't really thought about it. A friend of mine said, hey, you should try modeling first. And then I was like, okay, and I was doing a bunch of, back in the day, it would be like Bay Catalog and Zellers. It's not even around anymore, I don't think.
Rocking some 90s overalls, one strapped down.
Yeah, the pajama things. And
definitely.
And I was on set and I was doing photo shoots, and then, I would be standing there. And I think someone asked me today, how serious I am, or how close in comparison I am to Sky on Power Rangers.
Yes.
And Sky, I don't know if you've seen the show, he's very by the book, wakes up, he eats his, 3-meal breakfast and does his, sit-ups, and he's like by the book. Myself, Chris Violette, I'm like a jokester half the time. My friend Mike in the back can attest to that.
Having your McFlurry.
Having my McFlurry, it's going to be melted.
You're committed to your health and wellness. And
I am a healthy guy, but from January to February, it's bulk and eat whatever you want to stay warm and keep the winter blues away.
I just live 365 days that way. So
Yeah.
that's
So there you go. Hence the very.
Exactly, yeah.
But no, I was on set doing a modeling shoot, and then I was just joking around and telling jokes and like being silly, and then one of my friends, one of the photographers, was like, dude, I can't take your photo if you're gonna be moving your mouth and telling jokes. You have to like stay still. And I was like, okay. And I would like say stuff from it, and then I would break into another joke. And he's like, just go get into commercials. And then I went and got a commercial agent and a film agent, and one thing led to another, and I started little spots like Degrassi and stuff. And then Power Rangers in 04 was kind of like the big lead. Which was again like a life-changing experience. Which is to me as an actor, landing a job like Power Rangers as my first big role. And everyone in Toronto, and Jeff and these guys can attest to it too. Toronto, and this was before the internet. All right, like the internet was just coming out. Submitting a self-tape was like you actually had to submit a self-tape. It wasn't like, okay, I emailed you the link and here you go. And now it's a lot easier for your own exposure, right? But back in the day, everybody in Toronto who was an actor knew about the Power Rangers audition, because after Saban sold it to Disney, the first 5 seasons it was the same cast, same storyline, and then in season 6 and 7 it was like new cast, new storyline, the whole thing. And I auditioned for Jeff's series Dino Thunder, got the sides, and it said on the breakdown, we'll be flying to New Zealand, you'll be living in New Zealand for a year. You get 3 months of hardcore karate training and on-stage combat. And as an actor, you're like, this is like the job to book. And I was lucky and blessed enough that after that series, I didn't get the Dino Thunder, but auditioned for SPD, got SPD. And yeah, it was like, he went to New Zealand, the cast went on us, we became family right away. For the people you've never met before, you're like 12 hours a day beside each other, in each other's faces, and it was just so happened that 4 of us were Canadian, 1 was from the U.S., and we bonded. We became like family, and it was interesting too because Greg, the director of Power Rangers, and I've said this to a few people as well. What I think separated SPD from a lot of the other Power Rangers is being in the fact that we were in space and we were living and working with aliens. Greg was a sculptor and a set builder in Hollywood. Like he'd worked on Indiana Jones, he worked on Jurassic Park. Like he did a lot of work with Spielberg. He was a Spielberg junkie. He went to his house. He's got like an Indiana Jones jacket that's from the set. You know what I mean? He's got like dinosaur parts. And I was saying this to you too when we were talking earlier. When I went down to LA to visit him in 2009, we were able to sneak onto the Transformers set, and when they wrapped, and they were like throwing out a bunch of stuff. And at that time, him and I were trying to work out a TV series that we were going to create, and we were like, okay, let's take as much props as we possibly can. But it was interesting, and his work in all that previous years in Hollywood, he put a lot of his time and his own money into the series. And so that, like, when the alien prosthetics were prosthetics, he would glue on pieces of cheeks and eyebrows so that when the aliens moved, you could see that there was some facial recognition, some facial features. If you look at the Japan version of Doggy Kruger versus the North American version, it's a foam head versus and there was, guys controlling Doggy Kruger's mouth. One guy would control his eyes so he could be like this, he could growl. One day it caught fire, which was interesting. But going to the point of the story is having booked that series, that moment, that time. Greg and I became friends. Then immediately afterwards, me being a Joker on set, he cast me in the next movie that we did right after that. After Power Rangers in 2004, him and I flew to New Orleans and did La Boo. I don't know if anyone's seen that online. It's a children's movie. So, FYI. But it's kind of like Greg was a huge fan of E.T. and all that kind of Gremlins and what's the other one with Chunk? Goonies. That's it.
Yes.
And so this was kind of like a new version of Goonies meets like E.T. There's a little creature, and I played the comedic relief of like a son of an oil tycoon who we just kind of keep fumbling over each other trying to lock this land down that we want to build an oil rig on. And it was because literally, like, you know, if I had booked Dino Thunder, I would have never met Greg. You know what I mean? A lot of times too in this business, and I don't know if anyone's thinking about acting or going into film or production, it's, you know, they always say, oh, things happen at the right time or at the right reason or whatnot. And I met Greg, and then on set of Power Rangers, like a couple months in, he was like, you know, you're not like Sky at all. Like, you're like a really big goofball. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, you know, I don't like to take life too serious. I like to have fun. He's like, okay, well, I want you to read this character, and I think you'd be perfect for the part. Went to New Orleans. We were there for Katrina, which was also pretty scary.
Yeah.
We had to get evacuated and whatnot. But yeah, but that friendship grew, and like you saw again, him putting a lot of his own money and time into a production. And this kind of segue into, you know, me starting a production company. You know, if you're thinking about doing it, or if you want to get into this business, and people always ask me these questions of, you know, I don't know why it took me so long to start writing scripts. You know, I was 24 when I did Power Rangers, and I think I shot my first movie when I was 36. So like that whole 10 years, you know, I was working, but I would book a movie and then, you know, I would take off and go travel for 2 months and not come back. And my agent was like, well, you just booked a movie and now you're you're off the grid for 3 months. Like, what's?
Yeah.
But to me, I was young and I was just like, woo, this is gonna be fun. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, now I want to start telling the story, and I want to start, you know, picking the camera angles and picking the characters that come alive. And, you know, again, referring to Power Rangers because it was the thing that I'm kind of basically known for. You know, I get emails and letters from kids that are now adults and saying, you know, your character was huge in me growing up in a kid in school who was being picked on, or knowing that to keep on fighting for what you believe in, and working with a team, and you don't think of it when you're doing the show. You're like, okay, you know, I got a scene with the Red Ranger, and we're supposed to talk about, you know, what he's the leader of the team, and I'll follow him into battle no matter what, and you put the egos aside, and you don't think about it when you're shooting it, and then 10 years later you start to read these things, or even 15 years later, and you know, the impact that you have on a younger generation. And I mean, growing up, I was a fan of some shows, and I've met a few of my heroes, but I still have a few more to meet. I was a huge fan of Fresh Prince. I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And and one of the first episodes when Will's father leaves and comes back, sunk in with me because my parents were divorced and I never had a father growing up, kind of thing. But the whole series was like comedic and joking and laughing, and then you just stop and you get this one episode where like Will cries, and I remember sitting there watching that show, and I was like, and that was kind of like one of the shows that I saw that I was like, you know what, I kind of want to be an actor. And I was young enough to know, and I was like this was like, I sat there, I remember after the show ended, I shut the TV off and I just sat there for like 15 minutes, like half in tears going, holy shit.
Like, what just happened? Yeah.
Holy. That like what just happened, and how it started to make me realize what TV and acting could be possible to change someone's life watching it. Because I always looked at Will Smith as like this funny clown, and then all of a sudden it was like this huge serious episode, and I was like, that affected me. Like, it affected me.
When the clown gets it. Well, I mean, when you look at things like where a guy like Robin Williams came from and the work he ended up doing.
Yeah, and the sadness of his...
Yeah, for sure. And but just when the comedic actors go into the dramatic work, it almost has that more impact because it's not expected. Yeah,
I was so amazed that even, you know...
I'll try and talk every few minutes. So you can keep eating your McFlurry. I'll get a few words in so you can take a quick bite.
This is like an open discussion too, so feel free to ask questions if you guys want me to, segue into something.
I've got questions and stuff, but this is open for everybody in the room, so please fire away at any point, because we can go through your story. Yeah, I mean, God, Discovery and Handmaids. I know it was just one episode of Handmaids.
Handmaids is funny. Like I did that one episode. I think I had a line too, and I think they cut it. But I did one episode where I'm putting the girl in the van.
Oh.
And everyone's like, dude, I hate you. You sent her off to be hung. And I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, man. They said just take her to the van. I don't know what was going on. And I got a lot of and it's so funny how TV works like that. Like Discovery, the character was supposed to be a voice from an intercom. And then last minute, CBS was like, no, we want to make a character. And I literally got a call at like 12 in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning, saying, hey, can you, we want to audition you, this. And then we got to it was like 4 o'clock that day, so I jumped in. This is how the acting business works. And I got another story about Discovery that I'll tell you about season 2, and then we're going to bring my character back. But I got a call at like, 11 a.m., and the audition was at 4 o'clock that night. So had I been out of town or, up north or whatever it is, it's like you got to drop what you're doing. They want to see you in person. We walked in, there was two females, 2 males, a couple lines, and very heavy, scientific scripts of like, the galactic this is, we're gonna push this and whatever, I mean.
Some dilithium crystals.
Yeah,
stuff was happening.
Yeah. The vortex of the parallel, and literally I walked in. There's a huge row, and that's the thing too. When you're working with a network like CBS, there's a lot of people that make decisions. So sometimes it can be overwhelming. I've been into audition rooms where it's myself and one person. Yeah. And you feel comfortable, you feel relaxed. Other times there's like a row of 10 people, and they're like way over there, and you're sitting here, and me and you are reading together. That's the camera, and then there's 10 people just staring at you like this, and all you're thinking is, okay, this is Star Trek. This is like could be. Yeah.
Recurring multi-episode of Star Trek is kind of a deal,
And it's the thing, it's like, because it was like nothing, it was like the same day, it's like, hey, we're gonna, they want you to audition, this is this, and it's a character, and I've also told many stories too where, when I got the role, again, if you blink you might miss me, but it's very bridge oriented, and cameras are moving around, and it was great to be a part of it. But when I was on this series, or when I was on the set, it was also my job to continue to see if my character could get anything more, right? Like they give you your lines, and I was like, okay, well, I'm Rich Reeton from engineering now. Like, what else can I? If the captain comes over, can I like throw a line or throw an ad lib? And as I was there, and that's how this business works too. Is that when I'm on set, I'm not just like, okay, cool, I got this job, and now I can go and sit in my trailer and wait for them to call me. I'm not there yet. I'm not that famous, if you will, if you want to put that word in. But I was there, and I would be like, mind my P's and Q's, be funny when you need to be funny, be, not too overwhelming, talk to the writers, talk to the producers. And there was a couple times where, I'd say to the writer, I'm like, the ship just took a couple hits. I'm like, I should say something about the core to the captain, and, maybe say that we're firing, and the core's at 100% or 80%, shields are still intact. And he's like, okay, yeah, and he'd write me in another line, but every time you kind of, you don't do this maliciously, but you're doing it to build a bit of the character, but you're also giving yourself more screen time. And to be honest, like, I was saying this earlier, CBS, Les Moonves, who was the head of the network, saw my tape and was like, okay, I like this guy, we need another pretty boy on set kind of thing, because if you look at season 1, very diverse. There was, it was East Indian, Asian, American, alien, black, white. There was redhead, robot, right? And then there was this. Then when I thought about it, because this has usually been my downfall, is that I'm too like quarterback boy next door kind of thing, right? This one niche. I can go to an audition and I'll see 25 of myself.
So
guys with the same hair.
That makes you being a bit of diversity in a weird way.
Yeah, in a weird way. I'm like, okay, so they needed a guy like me. They needed like a, the all-American, let's go kind of guy on the set. Yeah. And it was just interesting how it worked out. And then, as I said, more screen time. Les was like, I like this guy. He's like, let's bring him on. And then now, fortunately, again for season 2, when they were going to bring back my character, Les is in a bit of a
hot water.
Hot water, yes. Yeah.
A little bit
of hot water. Trying to get a good severance, I guess, or something. But he's no longer at the network. Good segue into my second story about Discovery. So then the second season, and again, this is how the business works. I got to be careful what I say because I know we're being recorded. No, it's totally cool. It's totally fine. So it was like 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, and. I had just booked 2 other shows, like little small parts, and this is again the business is like this. It's very you always kind of remind yourself to stay positive and keep on working towards your goal. I booked a role on Saving Hope, The Good Witch, and The Expanse, and Expanse was supposed to be this commander, and like there's a scene in like this city, and then we break out and there's a brawl that breaks out. And so my agent calls me, I booked it, they put a pin in me, and then they said, okay, hey, we're going to use stunt doubles instead of actors because of the fight, we don't want to have both on set, we're just going to use stunt guys. I'm like, okay, so they're like, so I lost that one went out the back window. And then Good Witch, they were going to bring on my character, it was a volleyball coach, and then they said, hey, you know what, they're going to bring a different character on, they think that's too forward, and what was going on with this Me Too movement, I was a volleyball coach that was supposed to be falling for a student of some kind, and something like that. So there was, again, like politically correct. We scrapped that. So then this was on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and I'm like, man, really, like I lost both roles, and I'm like, down, and my agent called me, she's like, don't worry, something bigger, better's on the way, I can feel it, da da da. Next day, she's like, guess what? Star Trek wants to bring you back. I'm like, all right, I'm already on the show. You know, I probably have to read something, but it's fine. They're like, yeah, they want you to put a self-tape in. I'm like, okay, you know, humble. I'll self-tape as many times as you want, Star Trek. I get the call. This is the call at 10 p.m. at night. They need the tape by midnight. They want me to memorize 15 pages, right, to audition for this character. Be careful where you put this, by the way, because if this gets back to CBS, they'll be like, we're never bringing you back on the show. But this is just like
for you.
This is a personal story that I'm sharing with you guys. But and then this is like, you know, I went quite dark and directed, but just you're at the whim of people that you haven't even met, you know, and like you're jumping through hoops for 12 hours thinking that this could be a role that changes my life, which possibly could be. But yeah, it hits the character a little bit, so you just got to be strong. A lot of negativity, a lot of rejection, a lot of being said no to, you know. And half the time you don't even hear about it. It's like you audition, and then one of your friends will be like, "Did you get the part?" You're like, "Don't ask me, man." Like when I know, you'll know.
Exactly. So that was really the impetus for you for starting to produce and direct some of your own stuff. Like you're doing. For those of you who don't know, 2 shorts, one that was nominated at the LA Film Awards, and one that was won at Barcelona.
Yeah, there was. So one of them was my passion. Is that I was talking to this friend of mine on set, where and he was telling me the story. And I'm Polish. I'm half Polish, half French. Violette, obviously. And he's Russian. He was talking to me about this Polish butter that he used to eat. But he's like this really interesting looking Russian guy, and his accent and the way he was describing this butter, he was like, "Oh, it's the best butter, Chris. I tell you, it is crazy." And I was like, "Man, I'd like to do a movie with you talking about this butter, but give it a twist, right?" And all of a sudden I was thinking like Eastern Promises, right? Like how crazy was Eastern Promises? And that's crazy. We ended up getting the movie together. Had my other buddy Taylor Price, great actor. He was in it as well as like a detective. And it was funny to see like it's unbelievable how much work goes into the smallest amount of filmmaking. And don't get me wrong, there's the media now, which is YouTube and everything like that, and you can grab your cell phone. And I think I've said this to everybody here today. Tom Hanks said it best. He's like, filmmaking is being able to use the technology that's available to you in your time and make the best movie possible or best story possible, right? And this is going back to like, you know, back in the day. But nowadays with YouTube and whatever you want to do, you can hold your phone out and make movies all day long. But I was trying to make something that was like, you know, like if you watch The Handmaid's Tale, I was working on it yesterday and I was watching the DP's work, because I do some stand-in once in a while with these guys that I respect and I want to be mentored by. And you watch these guys light a scene, and you ever see when it goes back into like a dream sequence or when they go into a flashback, you're like even just like last night I'm getting chills. And I was like watching some of the scenes, and there's just like this blue kind of gray tone that he sends to it that you literally, when you're watching it, you feel cold. Like I was standing there like this, and then I was watching the take, and I was like, all of a sudden I was like, and I'm like, why am I hugging myself all of a sudden? I'm like, wow, like this is what the brains of a director of photography. Director of photography, for those who don't know, is the person who controls the lights and makes the tone of I guess the emotion comes through just the image. And the director obviously puts the camera in the right places. But yeah, like that to me, after his story about this butter, I did it, and we ended up shooting this movie. It was a lot of like jumping through hoops. And this is the thing too, is that I finished this movie, and I want to show it, I want to put it out there. But for 3 hours of the day, he had an audition, right? And he was doing me a favor. I said, hey, I'm not a millionaire yet. I can't pay people to be on I pay the camera guy, I pay the sound guy, actors, you get stuff for your reel, you know what I mean? He was gone for 3 hours. And so 3 hours left me with no time to cover his coverage of him, the main character in the story. So I'm left with, and I'm amazed that I'm humbled that I won a couple awards, but I'm watching it and I'm thinking to myself, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. I wanted it like this. I wanted it like this. But then I think to myself, well, what are the audience going to think? They're going to be like, why is it one angle? Like, what was he thinking? And I almost want to put a disclaimer, be like, he was gone for 3 hours, blink, blink. He was gone for 3 hours, blink, blink. I didn't want to shoot it like, but in the world of filmmaking, you know, like, I think it's Spielberg that says it. He's like, I'll never be finished editing. He's like, you could watch a film and shoot your film, and I've done it where you can re-edit and re-edit and re-edit, and it's like split-second things of like, you know, if we're in a shot where I'm putting my phone down, do I want to cut before the phone reaches the table, or let's try it when it reaches the table and I put my, like, there's so many split seconds of a film
nuances,
that can that can change it. So I was humbled to win an award, but you live and you learn, and from the next movie after that, there was a lot. Again, something always goes wrong on the set. The third movie I did was Forever and Always. And this was for a 48-hour film challenge. And if you want to test yourself as being a creator, enter these film festivals. They're a lot of fun. They have like 24-hour, 48-hour. Anyone can do them. You don't have to be a union or anything. But you get your team, you get your friends. They give you a genre, they give you a prop, and they give you a character. So everybody has to use these same characters, props, or not necessarily prop, but they some kind of like, you have the rules of what you have to do. And it's fun to see what people, given the same topic or same genre, can come up with. We had to use a beach towel, and I had to use the line, do you even know how that works? And it's just one of those lines they just throw in there, right? And the team that we worked with was really great. 48 hours, we got it done. I didn't sleep for 48 hours, pretty much, because I was writing, directing, and I edited it as well. So we didn't sleep, but then we took what we shot.
It's a short, so how long?
6-7 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you ever shoot a short, this is also a good thing to know. Keep it between 10 and less than 10, because usually what they'll do is they'll show your short before feature films at festivals. So if your film is like 25 minutes long or 20 minutes long, and it's a short, the chances of it playing before another film is very rare. But if you keep it just under 15 or 12 is usually perfect. They'll play it, and then you're at a festival like, if you get into places like Sundance, and the web now has many like, I call them highways, well, Film Freeway and Without a Box are these like, databases and social media platforms, not social, but platforms for filmmakers to put their films up. And you can enter into any festival you want. There's some Oscar-nominated ones that are in there. You got to pay to play, obviously. But if you think your artwork is good enough that, again, like that's how Vin Diesel got his start. He did a $3,000 movie. Spielberg saw it at a festival and was like, I'm going to put that guy in Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. And then next thing you know, he's a huge franchise guy. So, but that was that last one that I did. We really fine-tuned it, and I knew from the mistakes I made before. And it has a really crazy ending. It is up online. I'll probably blast it on YouTube and social media yet, because I haven't plugged it yet, because again, I'm worried about what everyone's going to think about my first film. With my actor gone for 3 hours, they're like, well, that one sucked. I'm not watching those two.
Well, now, it's interesting, though, that as a creative,
yeah,
do you find, and I've heard some people say this, having to work within those confines of that 48-hour thing, did that spur the creativity more? Like sometimes working within a box can make you have to do things.
I think as a creator, I always say this to people, and especially if you're going to create your own movies, at this age, again, I'm not a billion-dollar producer. I have to be a hybrid. Anybody I work with, they have to be hybrids, which is kind of contradictory to being on a regular set. Because on a union set, if he's in lighting and this is a light stand, and he's over there, and I'm an actor, or if I'm standing in, or if I'm doing something, they're like, hey, can we move that light stand? And I go and touch this, I will get on by everybody in the lighting department, because I'm taking someone else's job away from them. Yeah. I could literally stand here for 45 minutes staring at that light stand, but I cannot touch it unless somebody from lighting comes over and moves it. I did that once as a, was raised like, hey, help hold doors, carry bags, whatever it is. And I was like, yeah, let me help out. And they're like, what? And I'm like, what do I do? They're like, that's not your job. And I'm like, I thought we were all trying to go towards the same goal of, getting this as many shots as possible. Not on a unionized set. There's people, you don't step on anyone's toes on the set, but mind you, my set, and it's like, the guy who does the lighting is the guy who's holding the boom, is the guy who's doing the props. I need hybrids because, you're shooting a short, you want maybe 10 people as possible, because a lot of people are like, wow, am I getting paid? And it's very tough to find people that work for free that just want to create, and that's one of the things too, like, working in, and like you said, like working in the box, we would sit down and we'd brainstorm, and there's no room for egos, no room for you to be sulky and stuff, because one of the Red Windows, when I first did it, one of the producers got upset because his name wasn't on the clacker, right? And I'm like, dude, your name doesn't even go on the clacker. He's like, well, how are they going to know I'm producing it? I'm like, well, in the credits, dude, it says producer.
Nobody sees the clacker.
Yeah, nobody says the clacker, but to him, his ego was everybody on set was looking at that clacker and it said director and DP, right? And I was the DP, and my friend Anthony was directing, and he was just sitting there going, well, all these people don't know I'm producer. I was like, do you want me to stand up and say, hey guys, by the way, this is our producer, he's the boss, right? But that's the thing, that his ego was like getting in the way, and he sulked, and then he quit the film, and I was like, cool. I'm like, that's where you gotta kind of be careful, because there are people that can sabotage your productions when the slightest thing happens. You know, as a director usually has the final kind of, and writer if you're depending on what you're working on. But for the box, we would put up a whiteboard. Okay, give me your ideas. Like we could brainstorm a movie right now, and I'd be like, okay, well, let's put this down. Why do you think this is a good? What's the story behind this idea? Okay, I like this, but let's get rid of this one. And you can't be sitting there going, well, if you didn't like my idea, you throw as many ideas out there as you possibly can. When I'm on set and I'm directing, and if I want to cover somebody like this, and someone says, well, what if you go like this and you bring it up? I'll listen to it. There's no such thing as a bad idea. I'll put it in the box. Maybe I'll pull it out later. If it doesn't work right now, I'm not going to throw it away. But it's just like acting. You get said no to, there's a lot of rejection. You can't wear your heart on your sleeve when you're trying to create something, because one, the project that you're trying to create takes a lot of work. Like 12 hours, 13, 14-hour days. Like it's crazy. Like for Lebu in the swamp, like 5 a.m. I would get to set. It's like kind of freezing cold, kind of like 10 degrees, and you're a little cold, and I have to jump into a muddy swamp. And like there's flies and bugs, and it's not glamorous. But for 12 hours a day, I'm standing there, and I'm like, but I didn't care because I was creating something. This was my character. But you can't be sitting there like, oh, okay, so where's my trailer? I want to be hot, and give me this, and give me my Starbucks. And for someone who's up and coming, who hasn't made it yet, the ego's got to be the first thing out the door. You know what I mean? I'm not better than anybody. I never will be better than anybody. I was raised very proper, and that's the thing in this business. You can't, even when you're directing, I don't say someone to somebody that their idea is stupid. I say explain. Let's elaborate. I mean, like Bird Box, right? Someone said, hey, what about this idea where everyone can't look at stuff, but the stuff they're looking at isn't really anything besides this like wind breeze that is evil. Someone's probably going, what the heck? You know what? I like it. Let's do it. Like Jeff just told me there's a horror movie out right now. Is she okay? I heard a thump. There's a horror movie out right now it's called Slacks, and it's about a pair of jeans that's killing people. Is this true? Someone said, is it? Yeah, but I'm like, I'm gonna have to go IMDb this, but it's apparently a pair of jeans that's going to kill somebody. Right? There's
seems legit.
Look at Stephen King's Christine.
Oh yeah,
back in the day.
It's a car.
It's a car that kills people, but it's possessed.
Maximum Overdrive. Yeah.
Like there's any idea can work, and it's just be humble, take the ego out of the game, and like I said, I respect everyone's idea, but you gotta be ready to work and be a hybrid. Like there's no easy days on set ever. I don't think ever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, with the time we've got, what are we at?
I went off. Right?
I love it. I love it. I just want to
Jeez.
check our time. Okay, so we got a bit of time. So let's we'll maybe do some. I've got some more questions I can do, but let's see if there's questions from the crowd. Yeah, right at the back.
I got a question for you. So
Sure.
since you've worked in Canada and the United States, what are the main differences between an American set and a Canadian set?
The maple syrup.
I was gonna say,
and the Tim Hortons.
there's not much that's different. I think that's one of the things that the film industry necessarily it's kind of like a universal language. There's a lot of like on-set lingo that might be different. In New Zealand, there's like window martini shot, martini shot are the last shots of the day. We would call them, like I say martini, they're like, what's the martini shot? I'm like, oh, that was what we used in New Zealand or in the States. Like, you mean the window? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it's the window. Other than that, besides food on set, it's very different, from BC to Toronto. The catering's very different. The unions are very different as well. But yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, I've worked with American productions up in Canada. They're always like, man, it's cold up here. I'm like, dude, Minnesota is part of the States. It's like South Canada.
Yes.
Or I've worked with guys that are from the UK here. And most of them just talk about the food or like beverages, or because everything else is the same. I think you go to one set, it's like the lights, the electricians, the producers, the directors, they have the screens. But yeah, like when I was first in New Zealand, I remember I went to Subway and I asked for mayonnaise on my sub, and New Zealand it wasn't like mayonnaise that we're used to. It was like watery, kind of like salad dressing. So I was like excited to eat this sub, and I just was like, and I was like in my head I'm going, that's not mayonnaise. And then he's like, here you go, mate. And I'm like, all right, so that's one thing that's different filming here. I'm not going to Subway anymore. But yeah, to answer that, yeah, it's pretty similar, just food-wise mainly, I think, yeah, pretty much it.
Other questions, anybody? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
When something doesn't go your way, like you didn't get a part or something went wrong, what is your main motivator? Like, is there something that motivates you to keep?
My mother and my 2 sisters. Yeah, I think most people have heard me talk about this before, but I'm very ambitious. Again, when I was 24 to 34, I was lazy. I think, you can't be a lazy actor. I thought the roles were just going to keep coming in, which, they did. I mean, like, you did Diary of the Dead, and you do these, and it feels to me like my foot's in the door, and I'm like someone's pushing it closed, and I'm going, no, I'm coming into this fucking party. And eventually I'm going to be like, why I started writing and producing, because I'm just going to kick that door down. I think once you're bankable, once people see that, you have something, and again, I talk to myself every day, literally, like, we're kind of crazy. I'm a Gemini too, which is a split personality. Shut up, who said that? But I'm like, but it's literally, Netflix, the database they have, Amazon, the database they have. If I can't write something and get it to someone or in someone's hand, I'm not doing a hard enough job, and that's the thing. Like, to me, I've been in sales, I took jobs. I remember I was working with a friend of mine, and we were in this cubicle, and it was like, 8 to 6 every day, and I'm making 70 calls a day, and it was sales, and he's like, you guys work for me. He's like, everyone look at me. And I was like, he came into the bullpen, what do they call it? He's like, don't forget you work for me. And I was like, and it just dawned on me, I was like, you know what, no matter how hard I work, I'm always gonna be making less than him. I'm always gonna be under his thumb. And in this film business, one of the things is that if you don't like to work for anybody, that's why, entrepreneurship right now, everybody wants to create something. And we live in that time. You can create a job more than you can go and look for a job, I think. And to me, that was like, I don't want that negativity of him, being so firecracker. He's like a little sociopath, a little bit, drinking. And I was like, I can't have that in my life. And being in this business, you can go 0 to a millionaire or 0 to 100 real quick, like Drake says, I think. And you can have that success in a year. And I think that's one of the things is that my mother, I've been really close to her growing up. She has MS. She's been battling it for a long time. And I'm really close to my family. And when I don't get a role, yeah, it sucks. Like that Star Trek limbo that I went through, I went dark for like a month. I hated everything. I hated everyone. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was like, when's my time? When's my time? And you start to think like, okay, this is part of the business. I chose to be in this business. And if you ask a lot of people, everybody wants to be an actor because they want to be famous. Jim Carrey, one of my idols, he talks about, he's like, wait till you get there, and it's not what you want. And it's funny, I was in LA and I was talking to a lady at AFM, the American Film Market. It's where a lot of people go to sell films. And I was like, she's like, well, what do you want out of this business? And I said, well, I'm humble and I'm being gracious. And I was like, I just want to be successful enough to be able to take care of my family, make cool movies, work with my friends, take care of my mom, take care of my family. She's like, well, that's very selfish. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just want to, she's like, why do you limit yourself? She's like, the evils of the world, like the corporations, the bankers, the gas money people, there's a lot of people that are billionaires that are causing more good or more bad on the planet than good. She's like, why don't you want to be a billionaire film producer or a billionaire J.K. Rowling and like help change the world? She's like, go for that. And eventually I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to be more cocky. All right, well, I want to be better than Scorsese. I want to be better than Spielberg. And she's like, that's it. Keep sending yourself that message. And I was like, it's weird, but sometimes, you have to kind of, as much as you don't want to be an egotistical actor, I have to walk around in my own head thinking that I'm better than everybody else. Because if I think to myself, well, why don't they like me? Why don't they do that? I have to keep getting up in the morning going, people want your money, people want your script, people want your stories, people want you to direct shit, people want you. And you have to keep telling yourself, because otherwise, if I, take that Star Trek, audition, I'm like, well, I guess I can't act and I suck, and Hallmark won't hire me because I don't have the good hairline and yada yada yada. It's gonna you start that slow spiral, and it's tough to get back out of it. Man, January, February, this is like year of depression month. I came out of the gate on 2019 going, all right, it's gonna be a good year. First 2 weeks of the year I was sick and I was like eating fast food every day. I had no motivation. It's because I wasn't surrounding myself with I hadn't worked in a while. I wasn't hanging around with creative people. But as soon as I got on set and I was working a bit, and it's like, all right, everyone's moving, all these moving parts, and everyone's excited about what they're creating, and then it kind of gives you just a little bit of a spark, right? It's like recharging your battery. But yeah, it's the 3 women I love in my life, my 2 sisters and my mother. And that's the only reason, just to be able to secure and make sure that my family's protected and secure. That's it.
It's what fills your cup, right?
Yeah, like everyone has a reason why, you know, and like the only reason for me is like, don't get me wrong, I love film. I want to make really cool movies. I am going to make really cool movies. Like I love Cameron Crowe and his like Jerry Maguire. I was telling you, like, you know, when I saw that movie, I was like, man, I'm like laughing through the movie, and then at the end he's like, Jerry Maguire, my Emperor Kwame, and I'm sitting there crying, and I'm like, I'm crying, man. It's a great movie, and it's like, but those movies I watch them again. They bring me back to a time in my life when things were simpler, the world was smaller, it wasn't so driven by social media and all this. It was, you know, anything. Like even watching the Goonies, it brings me back to a time where I'm like, man, I remember when we used to play outside. You know, we had bicycles, we went and called on one another, and like, you know, just changed now, and it's kind of, you know, getting old. I'm not old, but I'm getting there, and it's like you start to remember that, and yeah, just, you know, I want to tell great stories like that so that when somebody watches a film that I've created or directed, I can, you know, transport them back to a time that makes them feel good, fills their heart, you know?
Well, that's the thing you need. I mean, it's my actual gig when I'm not doing nerd stuff like this is I actually work as a motivational speaker and speak at schools and businesses and stuff.
Nice.
One of my buddies in the industry, he just reminded me of something he said. One of his things, and I think you like, is he said if your why is strong enough, your how will follow.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you've got the thing that fills you up, you'll find your path afterwards.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you have one at the back there? Yeah.
Oh, I did. I was just wondering, what are some of the, you've done a lot of work as an actor and are moving into more production team kind of work. What are some of the biggest changes you've had to make in your attitude and your work to make that transition?
I think one of the hardest things as an actor and as a writer, as a producer or director, is you have to be self-discipline and self-motivation. You know, everything is to each their own, right? You know, to me, I can't go more than 3 days without being in the gym. The gym is like my meditation. I get up at 5:30 in the morning or 7 a.m. depending on how depressed I am. But I'll get in that gym and I'll spend like 2 hours in the gym. If I'm pissed off, I'll go and hit the punching bag. And I'm dead serious because otherwise I'm walking around going. But I'm in the gym. It gets my endorphins going, gets my blood pumping. And then the key too is, you know, get outside. I try and write, and I write some stuff. I have like in my studio, I have like whiteboards set up everywhere. And that's the thing too. If you're an idea man, it's great. Write it down. Because everyone's like, oh, I got an idea. Okay, cool, where is it? Oh, it's in my head. So you want me to write your stuff down for you, right? Like, and I have whiteboards, and like literally my whiteboards will say something like, pizza sauce extract. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And it's like some thought that came to me randomly in a bed, but again, like when I try and sit there and I try and I'm inside, and I don't see too much outside, I'm trying to write, I get my laptop, I go outside, I sit in the library, and I people watch, and when I'm out, that's when you start to see life, and it's easier to write. You know, very rare that I have a producing partner that she can sit and just be like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, to do one page, but once it starts to go, it starts to flow, and then you can run out like 10, 20 pages in a day, right? I think that's the thing, is like self-discipline, self-motivation. Like no one's gonna do it for you, especially in this business. No one's gonna give you a free handout. Like there are some cases, you know, but I mean, you know, like for example, Crazy Rich Asians, Alan Goulding, right? You know, he was a talk show host in Britain for a while, and the one guy who was producing Crazy Rich Asians was like, I want you to audition. Now he's auditioned, that movie was a blockbuster, he's bankable. Now every script he reads from after that will be a leading role in a Hollywood movie, right? That to me is like luck of the stars, but hey, to each their own. He was never wanting to be an actor, but he was in and around it, right? That stuff, when someone's not gonna knock on my door and go, hey, are you Chris Violette from Power Rangers? Oh, well, I got the franchise for you. But hey, I wish for that, but I mean, ideally it's gonna come from you. Like you gotta hustle, especially now with like Amazon and Netflix, and everybody wants to be a media viral video kind of thing. But also define what you want to do. You know, you won't see me posting viral videos because I want something that's a little more substantial. I post some comedy stuff. There's some stuff on my social media where I do like dub smashes and stuff because, you know, fans have asked me, hey, can you do a little bit more of this for us? But yeah, find something that like makes you really want to, you know, like get up in the morning and want to put the time in. You know, self-discipline, self-motivation. Yeah.
Now, given that, and you've alluded to a couple of times things like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and it's a different digital space that we're operating in for content creation. As you, as someone who is an actor, and then also as producer, director, what are your thoughts on sort of new media and things going forward?
I think it's great. I think it's a little crazy. I mean, I don't have a Netflix account, So I also can't, that's the thing, I can't sit there and be caught up in every TV show. I watch things like Black Mirror because they're pushing the envelope of what things can be, again, with Tom Hanks, the technology that they're using. I think the world now is obsessed with this whole post-apocalyptic, cameras in your eye, being able to rewind and relive life, which is totally fine. But it's also too is that, I've seen friends that I've gone over and we're hanging out and they've seen everything on their Netflix account. They've seen everything. And they're like, let's watch this show, the Door. And I'm like, well, why are we watching this? Well, because I haven't seen it before. I'm like, so you watch everything no matter what. Now that translates to me is that Netflix and Amazon are buying up everything. Like they need content. There's a new studio that's opening up in Toronto. I was on set yesterday for Handmaid and I was talking to my friend and she said, the IATSE union, who I was talking to you about, said the IATSE union is looking for people that can work on these sets because there's not enough bodies to fill these productions that we have coming here. And this is happening all over the world, right? I mean, like, you look at the amount of space that people can have to share their content, i.e. Netflix and i.e. Amazon. And there's always that conversation where people think, cinemas are going to become a thing of the past. I don't think cinemas are going anywhere because if you've ever watched a movie in VIP at Cineplex and like the new Avatar that's coming out, Alita,
Battle Angel.
Yeah, that looks brilliant. James Cameron's got Avatar 3, 4, 5 already lined up. I'm like, the 3D cinema art isn't going anywhere. But for the fact that you look at Bird Box, wasn't released in the cinema, went straight to Netflix, it might probably get a cinema release because of its traction in Netflix.
Yeah.
Right? I think, the actual media itself, be very careful about what you pick and choose to watch. But I was at AFM and I saw movies that were getting made for $200,000, but they tried to make $1 million movie. And I'm like, you're giving $200,000, don't make $1 million movie because then it's going to look like a $200,000 movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, you get $200,000, make a $100,000 movie, make it look really, really cool, because then, again, like we live in a world where someone puts a YouTube video together, and there was that short, In the Shadows or something like that. It was a scary movie that these Europeans did where he turns off the light switch, and there's like, looks like an alien standing there, and it's the coats, and then he turns it back on, it's just the coats, and then he turns it off again. Someone saw it got 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million hits, and there's people watching YouTube. Like, again, for anybody who's an aspiring filmmaker, there's people that are paid to watch videos, and if they're gonna go viral and what their traction is, they'll get contacted and they'll be like, hey, we wanna option your short film into a feature. That's another avenue that I'm trying to look at, right? I can take 10 grand, shoot a short, this one post-apocalyptic one that I'm working on right now that I'm trying to shoot up at my cottage in the dead of winter. Hopefully get that done and do it well enough where I can put it out there, and then someone says, hey, we want to turn this into a feature. Like, cool, great. Well, then that foot gets further into the door, right? Because then it becomes bankable.
Is it something that with a short, and especially if it's a short that you want to then upscale into a feature? I know I've seen on YouTube and some other things that there's some of these content creators and young directors that their short is a trailer that has never been shot.
Yeah.
A trailer for a movie that never happened.
Yeah.
So all they did was pick, these are the shots from a movie that never happened that we want. There was one just in sort of nerd world. There's one, if you ever want to look at it, it's called Grayson.
Okay.
This guy in California who shot a Robin as an adult, Batman dies, and he wants to avenge him. All he did is a 5-minute film that's a trailer for a movie that never happened. But you watch that 5-minute film and you go, yeah, I want to see that movie. Like, I would like to see that movie, and that's how he's marketing his stuff.
And there's festivals out there that, like, when you go on the Film Freeway Without a Box, when you classify your film, it can say short, action, drama, and there's a section for trailer. Like, you can submit your trailers. Now, that's the thing is too, what we was talking about is that, when you shoot a trailer, if you're showing the different aspects of the movie, it could cost a little bit more money, right?
Sure.
Especially if it's an action film. Like, I want to have a car chase in a bit of it, or if it's a drama film, you want to film all these different scenes, whereas a short, you're telling 10 minutes of the crucial part of the movie, maybe, or a little bit less. Like, I saw this zombie movie online. I was researching, like, post-apocalyptic viral movies of shorts. And the movie starts, again, no budget, but it starts with the sound of a car crash, right? The sound of the car crash. And then the film wakes up and they're all kind of dizzy and they're in this car that's already, crashed into this tree. And his wife isn't automatically a zombie. And there's a baby in the back seat. and then he goes and finds his daughter in the back, and he's got a bite, and now he's trying to calculate how long before he turns, and yada yada, and he starts walking to this forest. He starts walking through this forest, and then there's a little bit of a slow cut, and he like falls, and now he's walking, and you see the picture of the baby, and he's the one shot that makes the movie is that he's like walking, you don't know he's a zombie yet, but the baby's holding this balloon, and the baby makes a noise, and you see him, and he turns back, and he's like, and he's turned. But in front of him is a stick that's holding a bunch of guts that's keeping him moving forward, right? But the only thing, that one shot where you're like, this baby, this innocent creature's by herself with his dad, but you don't see him turn, you just see him, this little side angle of his eyes all glazed over, and he's like dead. And then eventually, he gets shot and they find the baby, but that whole sequence was like a 7-minute film that took maybe $200 to film. You get a car that's busted up, put it against a tree, splatter some corn syrup blood, you're walking, you're a zombie, and you're just watching, but already you start to feel for this guy because he's dead. He doesn't know what's happened to his daughter, but she eventually gets saved. It's interesting.
It makes it more of a sort of a golden era for if you want to create stuff.
Yeah.
So many avenues, so many opportunities to create.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just it's an interesting ballpark we live in, but media is one way to do it, and I think again, use what's available to you. I'm shooting a film at my cottage because I have a cottage.
Yeah.
Right? I can't shoot it if I had places and I had friends that said, hey, use my, I'm dying to see if anyone has a Bay Street office I could use and just go in there, because that would give me a bunch of options to shoot a bunch of films that I want to do. But if I can use things for free, otherwise it's like permits and then police, and then you got to have this, you got to have that. So
I might have a couple things for you.
It's the same. Like even with this film that I'm going to use, I have to go to the union and I have to say, hey, I have to submit a script. They have to read the script. I have to have a producer who's union, a director who's union. I can use non-union crew, but all the actors have to be union. So it's just there's a lot of red tape.
That's what people did.
You had one last question.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, just because you've got such an interesting perspective on all this, what's your opinion on someone like Lloyd Kaufman and Troma?
And sorry?
And Troma Entertainment. Just because he does so much independent film.
I mean, to each their own, like I say. One of my, growing up, I look at Robert Rodriguez. His first movie, the Mariachi.
Yeah.
You look at that film, and you can barely make out the audio, right? It's again, the technology of his time. He probably had 4 people on set. That's it. He had probably his camera guy. He was probably the camera guy. And he was probably just yeah, go. And then someone was holding sound. To me, I mean, if you're creating, and again, you're creating a feature too, it takes so much time and effort. And when I did Red Windows, again, we did a very low budget, but one day the battery you plug in overnight doesn't charge. And we did this 48-hour film fest. The guy's AC cable kept on coming unplugged and would shut the camera off. And then every time we would plug it in again, we would go to shoot, and then it would cut 3 seconds in. And I'm like, we have 48 hours. It's 2 a.m. You didn't think of this problem? He's like, well, I didn't know it was gonna happen. And that's the thing. If you're creating and you have the cojones, or the heart, if you will, to go in and do a feature, I respect everybody no matter what they're creating, because until you shoot something of that length, of that magnitude, you have to cross your T's and dot your I's. You're recording sound. What's the tone? You want to color correct it. You know what I mean? There's just, again, then you got to think about the actors and what you're trying to talk to them about, what they're trying to convey on your film and the words you've written, and how does this make you feel? How do you want to say it? But yeah, if you're creating, like I say, to me, I respect anybody who's putting the time in to create features. And that's the thing. I showed a friend here my list of books and films that people recommend me to watch. Because again, and I'll even show it to you guys here if you guys can see it. But it goes on and on and on and on and on and on forever. There's a couple green check marks in there. That's my 2019, trying to get through it. But some of these, Fight Club, great movie. Someone said, hey, read the book. So I'm like, okay. Good Time, a Robert Pattinson movie. Someone said, hey, let's watch that. Donnie Darko, old school. Gotta rewatch that again.
Do the director's cut.
Yeah, see, there's The Jinx is a new show. All right. Here's Netflix, Forks and Knives documentary. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Milagro Beanfield War.
Oh, classic.
Right?
Redford, yeah, that's from back in my days.
Yeah, see, so like there's just all the, but see, that's again, like that.
That's a Redford movie.
That's stuff that I will watch, and somehow if I'm, I watch like a movie, I'm watching it to, I can sit back and relax. Some friends of mine don't like that I watch some movies together because I'm like, oh, did you see that? Did you see it? And I'm like, okay, I forget, I got to be actor and be audience member instead of trying to rip everything apart. But yeah, like anything is inspiration, like I watch old movies, I watch new movies, I can't take away from anything that's any piece of creation. There's a great book that I read called Steal Like an Artist, and it just talks about how artists all steal from one another. And if you're not being stole from, it's almost like a compliment.
Add to your list, look up on YouTube, there somebody recut a whole bunch of scenes from Fight Club and digitally removed Brad Pitt.
Oh, really?
It makes it wild.
Fight Club YouTube.
I can't, just YouTube, but it's where Brad Pitt's just edited out, like they just digitally removed him, so it's literally just Ed Norton talking to himself.
Oh wow, that's
and
cool.
like him fighting himself with Brad not there. It's crazy.
Crazy.
It gives you a whole lot because that's what's
But
really
it's
happening.
funny though, because
That's
when you
what's
watch,
really
when you
happening.
watch Fight Club again, I sit there and I'm like, Brad Pitt's not there. Like, and I'm trying to think
like,
like
they really take him out.
especially with
This is insane.
Yeah, that's cool. See,
It's
that's
cool.
That's
That's
interesting.
that kind of stuff is interesting.
That's
Well,
interesting.
We probably have to give up the room for another panel coming in. Chris Violette,
This
thank
is
you so
fun.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for